everyone. I'm really glad to see you all again, and I will shortly present you my research in the framework of EuQu. I joined the EuQu project in September 2019 as a postdoctoral researcher of the Nantes team, and I'm carrying out a project dedicated to the knowledge of the Qur'an in the French medieval literature between the 13th and the 15th century. Before André Durier's translation, the history of the French knowledge of the Qur'an sparked a limited interest. However, the absence of a complete translation of the Qur'an before Durier's does not imply that this knowledge was inexistent. As Peter Wunderlich wrote in 1965, there is a capillary type system of diffusion of knowledge regarding Islam in the French medieval literature that remains almost unknown to us. And this field of investigation is still overlooked. And of course, the same observation can be made about dissemination of the Qur'an or Quranic material in the medieval French corpus. So the study of the transmission of parcels of the Qur'an can illustrate a more circumscribed way of transmission that nevertheless played a key role in the integration of the Holy Book of the Muslims into the religious and cultural landscape of the medieval France. In other words, the main purpose of my project is to determine how the Qur'an has been rooted in fundamental documentative and religious works written in French, and the extent knowledge of the Holy Book of the Muslim the French readership could acquire. So to address this question, I gathered a corpus composed by 7 major texts written between the 13th and the 15th centuries that either contain a more or less elaborated discussion on the Qur'an or Quranic material, which is direct quotations of verses of the Qur'an or literary elaboration based on this Quranic material. These texts are the following. The first one is Le Livre de l'Échelle Mahomet. This text contains the first known occurrence of the word Al-Quran in the French language. There is also the anonymous French translation of Ramon Llull, Le Livre du Gentil et des Trois Sages, Jean de Vignier's Miroir historiel, Le Livre des Merveilles du Monde by Jean de Mandeville, Jean Lelong's French rendition of Ricoldo di Montecroce's Liber Peregrinationis, the anonymous French translation of William of Tripoli's De Status Saracenorum, and of course Jean Germain's Trésor des Simples, which is being edited by Irene Reginato. And I'm conducting a two-folded analysis of this corpus. The first part is contextualizing and analyzing the corpus because it essentially relies on or translates Latin works, offering a unique way to analyze the reception of the Latin production to a new audience. In this part of my project, I analyze the context in which these texts were translated and written. The objective is to understand in which political, religious, and literary circles these texts were written, to define more precisely the audience to which they are addressed. I also study how the authors and translators dealt with the Qur'an, as well as their attitude towards the Quranic material. This phase being crucial to understand the way the Qur'an is defined and understood afterwards. The second part of the research is focused on what these texts say about the Qur'an and how they use its content. A distinction can be made between 2 strands of discourse. The first one is the Qur'an as a book, because it is known to these authors to be a material object, a book containing a collection of laws. This conception implies a previous phase of redaction the French author analyzed or tried to reconstitute. Most of them attempt to deny the divine origin and nature of the Qur'an using different strategies I intend to analyze. The main strategy being, of course, is to argue that it has been written by the hand of Muhammad and that it echoes his life. Others turn the accusation of tahrif against the Qur'an itself or demonstrate the inadequacy of its content. The second subsection of this part is the analysis of the real content of the Quran, and I will study how its content is being used and manipulated within these texts. So far, the Quran seems to be exploited in this corpus as a reservoir of information and is used for distinct and sometimes complementary purposes. The first one is to understand and describe Islam. The second one is to define more precisely Muhammad's law and refute it, of course. And the third one is to redefine and rectify the Christian doctrine. And this is through these different uses, I intend to analyze how these authors use the content of the Quran. And with this project, I hope to contribute to the history of the Quran in the Western French-speaking area and to better define how Europe got acquainted with it. Thank you for your attention.